saying men should be dangerous. By dangerous, that implies I should be ready to threaten someone, to hurt somebody.
No, you should be capable of it. There's nothing to you otherwise.
Welcome to the Dangerous Man Podcast, where we talk about how to become a better man, take responsibility for our mission, create value for others, and the many failures and lessons we've learned along the way. Stay dangerous. Welcome back to another episode of the Dangerous Man Podcast. This is your host, John Kostohris, and I'm joined graciously by co-host
Adam Thooft. What's up? How you doing today, John?
You know, I slept a little longer than I normally do because I stayed up a little later than I normally do. And you know the feeling when you're just like, it would be nice to get another 3 hours of sleep. But then you're like, no, you're lazy, John. Get up. And then you're like, well, it would be nice, though.
Yeah, it's kind of like that bed logic where you're like, boy, I don't really care about my dreams. I just want to sleep for 3 hours. And you're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense.
It's like either I actually really need to get more sleep and I need to crack down on myself, which is, I would say is true for me, or I need to be less of a bitch when I'm getting out of bed.
Yeah.
So,
or something.
There's a little bit of both, I think, at all times.
You're like, okay, I'm just being weak and I need to, just be a little tougher and grittier and get out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So that's how I'm doing.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Yeah. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I honestly had like a similar situation this morning where it's like, do I really want to get up? Maybe I'll just keep sleeping.
Oh man.
Some part of me's like, I hope John sleeps in extra so I don't have to come and do the podcast this morning. That sounds nice. And I'm like, nah, shut up. We need to go do stuff.
We call that our bed logic.
Yeah.
It's the one of Peter, one of our friends. He comes on the show from time to time. He calls it his bitch voice.
Yeah.
So or more like his bitching voice.
Yeah, because it's just complaining all the time.
Yeah, man. But no, Adam and I have had a few conversations in the kitchen in the passing, and it has to do with, I'll let you introduce a little further, but it has to do with basically like there are, is it 6?
Yes, 6.
6 different, I guess, qualities, and I'll leave it at that, and Adam can define it further to his liking, but for the sake of introduction, 6 qualities that every person has in a working environment, in specifically a team environment. And there are kind of a different combination of these qualities that you maybe are stronger in or weaker in or more energized or more drained by. And we have our strengths, and we all have our strengths and weaknesses. Adam, what exactly does that mean for us? And what's kind of the overview of some of these concepts, and what can we take away from them today?
Yeah, so
you have the floor.
Got a lot of this from Patrick Lencioni. I believe that's how you pronounce his name.
Oh, I've been saying it wrong for years.
I think it's Lencioni. How do you think it's pronounced?
I thought it was like Lencioni or something like that.
Maybe it might be. That C might be pronounced like an S.
But regardless,
you might be right, John. Actually, I'm like,
okay. When you said I thought that's how you pronounce it, I was like, oh, this guy has like inside information. He's been on the inside, and I
just feel like he should have like a mobster. Lencioni sounds like a mob boss name, like an Italian mobster name.
Oh, okay.
You don't want to.
Let's go with that one then.
You don't want to cross Lencioni and his boys, you know.
Oh, getting.
But anyway, there's
Godfather shit right there.
So basically, it's called the 6 types of working genius. So for this, it's like basically how you work in a working environment and the different phases of, or in the different like kind of types of work that has to be done to do a project from like start to finish. That's kind of like the overview, but it's like certain types of work that you have to do at different parts of the process. So the first one is wonder, which is the natural gift of pondering the possibility of greater potential and opportunity in a given situation. So that's like, generally you're not going to be like you're just going to like look at things and be like, what if we did it differently? Or what if there was a way where we could do, like, I'll use this podcast, for example. Me and John, when we like started season 2, were like, is there a way we can make this more efficient so we have to do less work? And it's like, well, instead of breaking down all of our equipment every time and then setting it back up, we just leave it set up the whole time. And it cuts down on time, and it makes like, I guess, like the barrier of starting a lot less.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, it's not necessarily
There's
like coming
exploring
up,
kind of like yeah. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. There's
Wonder.
a lot of like creativity to it, but
That's
also just kind of like I almost kind of think about it as like you're playing around with something to be like, wait, does it work slightly different? And is there a more efficient way to do it? But that's not necessarily like figuring out the exact way to do that. That's the next one, which is invention, which is the natural gift of creating original and novel ideas and solutions. So that's more like, wonder is more of like the observing, like, wonder if we did this a different way, or maybe there's a better way. Whereas invention is like, oh, we need to leave everything set up. Whereas wonder would be like, hey, I wonder if there's a way where we can do less time when still making a podcast and like spend less time outside of it, like working on it. Just so it's easier to.
And so invention is like solutions.
Yeah, invention is like coming up with the solutions.
Interesting.
This is kind of a quick overview. The visual that they give are like 6 cogs, so like gears with the teeth that all fit together. So it's like a well-oiled machine kind of thing if they're all working properly.
And if they're oiled.
Yeah, and if they're oiled, I suppose. And then so it's wonder, invention, and then the third one is discernment. So discernment is the natural gift of being able to intuitively and instinctively evaluating like ideas and situations. So
yeah,
the person that with invention will come up with the idea like, hey, what if we, set up all of the mic stands and stuff for the podcast, so then we could just start immediately and we don't have to do much setup. The person with discernment is like, well, if we leave the stand set up, they might get bumped and I don't want to get the equipment damaged, but maybe if we if there's a way where we can put them like out of the way more, then it might be possible. Like, it's kind of like, hey, the inventor makes like a good idea or solution, and then whoever's like discerning or discernment is like, okay, where are the like potential pitfalls with this idea? Why is this idea really good? Should we do this project and start down this path to finish this one, or should we like tweak it some?
Sure.
So that's kind of like the first stage of figuring stuff out. But then from discernment, now that you've decided, hey, this is a good idea, maybe we should set up the stands in a different way. The next one is galvanizing, which is a little bit of a different word. I feel like I'm familiar with the other three. I mean, discernment, not necessarily everyone is with, but we're also in kind of like church land where it's used a lot more in
that word
in
is
like
thrown around.
Christian circles a lot. But galvanizing, I actually get this from when I worked at a
Menards.
Yeah, Menards. And I just think of galvanized fence, which is like it's just like a certain kind of like.
I've heard galvanized nails.
Yeah, too. It's like metal that's like designed so it doesn't like rust out. I'm not entirely sure what they do to it, to be honest. Part of me wants to say it's a coating, but also part of me is like
a strict scolding.
Yeah.
Don't you dare rust. All right, put galvanizing on the box now.
Just yell it. All right. Don't you dare. Yeah. But anyway, galvanizing is the gift of rallying and inspiring an organization or others to take action. So it's really like, basically I think about it as getting the other people involved. So like John coming up with this, having this idea and talking about this is like, yeah, let's just put it together and let's do it. And let's keep doing the podcast and set this up because it's going to be like really great. And we're going to start cranking on it and putting a bunch of them out. That's kind of more galvanizing, where it's like getting people to take action and be organized and kind of like get people in line and under the ideas and the discernment that's already happened. So that now you have everyone together.
Get everybody on board with this plan and that's been discerned and figured out and interesting.
And then the next one is enablement. So this is providing encouragement and assistance for an idea or a project. So it's like, okay, like in your role in figuring this out, like you got this, like good, John, like this is a really good idea to leave the mics set up. Let's figure out the proper like way to angle them and how to like set everything up properly so all the cords aren't messy, so it's a lot easier to keep it all out. Like, hey, that's a good idea to like loop them behind that there. And it's kind of like more of the just being
execution,
able to it's not necessarily execution, but it's more like
it's more nuanced.
It's more nuanced in a way where it's like I'm encouraging you to do the things that you already need to know you need to get done. It's kind of it's like opposite of bed logic in a way.
So it's just like it almost makes me think of like a not a crew chief, but like a foreman kind of.
Maybe, but not. It's more
maybe I'm giving the totally wrong idea here.
I think it's more like the coworker that really believes in you.
Oh.
It's like if it's the opposite of bed logic, where you're in bed and you're like, sleeping in for another 3 hours sounds amazing. If someone was encouraging you, you'd be like, no, you gotta get your dreams. Go get your dreams because you're capable of getting your dreams done. Nothing's gonna stop you except for you. Like, what do you got to lose? Get your dreams up. Get write in your journal. Get it all dialed in so you know what you're chasing for the day, and then go get it. It's like that kind of thing.
You're right. That is the opposite of bed logic. Pumped.
Yeah.
What was the name for that one again?
Enablement.
Oh, that makes so much sense with the title of that.
Yeah. And then the sixth and final one here is tenacity, which is the gift of pushing projects or tasks to completion to achieve results. I think a lot of people also kind of call this like grit or something like that. But tenacity is just actually finishing the thing. And even when you like run into like, oh, this is an issue and this kind of throws everything off. Well, we're going to work through that and figure out the way to get around this problem to finish the project. Because, and kind of Patrick Lencioni or Lencioni, I always want to just call him Lencioni now because he's a mob boss of how to work better. We'll make all of the the workflows too efficient.
So let's talk about. So now we have the six working geniuses. Let's spend about a few minutes here. Let's talk about like why those are important and like exactly kind of. I know some of them. I know there's a nuance of like some of them you have more of and less.
Yeah.
I want to break that down and like get into maybe a bigger picture here.
Yeah. So kind of Patrick Lencioni breaks it down into. They basically kind of created an assessment to figure out which ones you're better at and which ones you're not so good at and which ones you're kind of okay at. And they just try to define like, okay, the ones that you're genius in. So 2 of them you're a genius in, and they didn't necessarily pick that number. They just found that's what people said is, oh, I'm this one and this one.
All these tests, they found a bunch
all
of
these
data.
assessments, they just found, hey, I'm good at this one and this one. And that's usually what happens. Now they did run into some people who's like, well, I'm kind of good at all 6. And then like, okay, but which ones like bring you joy in work? Then it was 2 of them. So it's like, it's really the ones that you're genius at are not only the ones that you tend to be really good at, but also the ones that actually you really like doing.
You like doing, they give you joy.
Yeah.
They give you life.
Yeah. So it's
You're
like,
energized to do them.
Yes.
And when you do them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whereas then there's 2 that you're competent at where it's like, I can do these. I'm decent at these. They don't necessarily give me joy, but they're fine. And like, I can do them and I understand how to do them. Yeah. And like, if you obviously the whole like project, you're probably going to have to do parts of the whole thing because these are like different types of work in a project, right? So you're going to probably have to do all the parts at some point. So you're going to have to do, the parts that you don't like, which the parts that you don't like, or the 2 that you're the worst at, are your frustrations, which like you might be able to do them and maybe even do them well, but boy, do you not like doing them.
But it's more than just not like doing them. It's like it's frustrating and draining, right? Like
it's frustrating. It's draining. It's like when basically Patrick said when he was working in a job where he had to do more of his frustrations, he'd get what he called the Sunday blues, where he was on Sunday and he just like dreaded going into work on Monday.
Ooh. Yep. Huh. That's fascinating. So like, essentially if we have a better understanding of like where our 2 geniuses are, what our 2 frustrations are, kind of what we're competent at too in the middle.
Yeah.
Like I guess what does he say or even just what do you kind of think about the importance of how this works in a team setting?
I mean, if you have to get like a project done with a team, it would be very helpful to understand each person's geniuses, competencies and frustrations. So you can assign people kind of, or have people choose the work that they're doing in the project in a way that it lines up where everyone's actually doing the part of the project that they have a genius at. Because then it's just everyone's just gonna, be pretty good at doing that kind of stuff and enjoy it. It gives them life.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be able to do that project to its fullness and not have anyone be like, man, why are we doing this? Or like, man, I'm just dragging today. Like I can't, like this sucks. As nearly as much.
You can avoid a lot of the frustrations and lack of progress or synergy on a team.
Yeah.
If you were to like, instead of being like, who wants to do this? Or let me pick someone to do this. Be like, oh, I know this person is really good at, one of these, or the work that I have to assign fits into this, one of these 6. Oh, this person's a strength zone for them or a genius zone. Okay, here.
Yeah.
you take that. If everyone's like
Mhm.
on fire to do their thing, like, and they're not just like competent, but they're inspired and like it just, you know what I mean? Does that just fuel
Yeah.
this same energy carries into the team? And that just seems really, that's super cool that there's that, I guess, such a kind of an awareness of, they've built this out into like almost a system that they've had people do assessments and be like, whoa, this is
Yeah.
just like a pattern in the data we see. That's fascinating.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know if you have maybe one question here before we wrap. Like, is there one question that you have that you still haven't quite figured out, or
Yeah.
something about it that you?
It's
Yeah.
mostly like, okay, what, like, part of me is like, okay, I'm not entirely sure what my geniuses are yet. And I'm like, I have like an inkling of like, I think they're wonder and
He's pulling up the list.
yes, wonder and enablement. I want to say, I usually want to call enablement like encouragement or something, because that's essentially what it is. But like,
It's almost like a quality of it.
yeah,
I like the word enablement.
yeah,
But,
enablement.
but as far as like
but-
you identifying with it,
Yeah.
though.
like that's like the part that's like is like, that's really cool. So, and those are the ones that I'm like, those
I
are the
see what
ones
you
that I feel like would give me the most joy. I don't know which ones are my frustrations and which ones are my competencies. So it's like, well, I haven't really assessed myself yet. But I'm
Yeah.
like learning more about how it actually works in a structure and like the benefits of knowing people's working geniuses, so you can know what kind of things they like to do in a work project. But also a lot of the work in the work geniuses is a little bit like nuanced, so to actually like more fully understand, like, when am I doing the wondering part, and when am I doing the invention part, and when am I doing the discernment part, and when am I doing the galvanizing part, when am I doing the enablement part, and when am I doing the tenacity part. Like, I'm not really exactly sure, like, oh, that's this type of work, oh, that's this type of work, because I like sometimes there is a lot of nuance there. So
Sure.
it's more like I have to get to know it a little bit more, so I can know, hey, like, look at a type of work and be like, hey, that's that type of work. I know this person who that's genius for, they should do that part of the project.
So just an actual general awareness of, of how this works more, to be able to recognize it in people.
And be able to apply it a lot more, because I
Yeah.
think if you are able to apply it to people, then you're able to actually have people have a lot more like joy and satisfaction in the work that they're doing, because it doesn't
Yeah.
frustrate them.
Though, to be continued, guys. Adam is continuing to dive deep in this subject and his study here, and we figured it's like, this is something we wanted to give an overview of, because I think it's going to be really powerful. And so if that was interesting to you, we'll definitely follow up with a more in-depth series going into each of these. But that's kind of like an overview, and I just kind of imagine like a team that's not just like, blindly assigning work, right?
Yeah.
Or they're just, I don't want to do this, so I got to delegate that. Well, they told me to delegate, so I'm going to delegate. Just be like, imagine like leaders and men in our Dangerous Men community that have like you know what I mean? What you talked about, Adam, what you desire, which is build a recognition of these 6 working geniuses in people, and being able to actually kind of almost like we'll enable people by, we'll find the people that can enable other people with these, right?
Yeah.
And help the team to flourish and grow. And just imagine that more synergy in teams and leaders, because they weren't oblivious to, some of these working geniuses under the surface, and maybe why there's frustration in a team, and just the intelligence and just imagine the impact that have like in maybe your businesses or your career, in your community, in your church, even in the country, in the leadership in the country. And it just it gets me pumped. But if that excites you and you want to learn more, share this podcast to help other men embrace danger and become great. You've been listening to the Dangerous Man podcast. Join us next time. And until then,
claim your greatness
and stay dangerous.